Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Please accept my
Hare
humble
Krishna
obeisance.
Prabhuji.
Jai, please give my humble obeisances, everyone.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
We have the whole crew here. Too long to list, but everyone I see and all the names, my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, let's start with a little kirtan as we do. I don't know if I have the permission here to mute everyone.
I have made you the co-host Prabhu. Now you can mute them.
Thank you. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupat Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Ashtottara Sri Shrimad Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Shekha Hosha Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Srimati Tulasi Maharani ki jai, Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaudiya Vaishnavism in Pakistan ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I ran out of battery on my camera. I'm just going to replace it. Give me 1 second, please. Okay. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai Jai. So here we are, continuing with the mercy of Srila Rupa Goswami given to us by Srila Prabhupada on the third verse, Utsaha Nishchaya Daryat, etc. The 6 principles that are favorable for the execution of pure devotional service. And we read about the Prabhupada quoted some famous verses, like this verse from the 7th canto, where Prahlad Maharaj describes the 9 processes of positive engagement of our senses, and then Prabhupada is sort of breaking them down, starting with Shravanam, and he told us about these the importance of hearing from the right source, Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, and all that. And then we got to the point of enthusiasm. And again, back to the point of Yukta Vairagya, isn't it? And I think we got to the point of patience, isn't it? I think we are at the paragraph. These activities must be executed with patience. Is that where we are?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes. So since you are all overflowing with enthusiasm to read, let's do a list again. So first come, first serve. Raise your hands. So I'll just write them down. Or actually, it's even easier. I'll just take a screenshot. So right now we have 7. Okay, I'll wait a little bit longer. Okay, let's just start with these 7 here. Let me put it so I don't have to, I can just cut and paste. Here we go, it'll be easier. So we'll start with Barka, and then we'll have Mehak and Poonam, Roshni, Eshwar, Riya, Komal, Kishori, Varsha, Aruna. And then so after Aruna, we'll continue the list. So our first contender is Barka. So perhaps Barka, you could step up to the plate, as they say in America. It's an expression, when you play American baseball, like the baseball where you come. It's kind of like what's it called? Cricket, but it's just better. I'm joking. I never understood cricket. I tried a few times. I don't understand cricket. But anyway, in baseball, there's an expression: you come up to the plate, you step up to the plate, and you're ready to strike the ball that the strikes are. I mean, I guess you also step up to the 3 poles, isn't it, in cricket? Sundar and Rohit, you watch cricket a lot? Yes. And do the ladies also watch cricket? You are all in Maya. Shame on you. You should be using that time to hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That was a trick question. You see, I don't know anything about these sports. I'm just saying these things to make you comfortable so that you admit how much in Maya you are. Okay, these activities must be executed.
May I start?
The it's all yours. The mic is all yours, Barka.
Hare Krishna. These activities must be executed with patience. One should not be impatient in Krishna consciousness. Indeed, this Krishna consciousness movement was started single handedly, and in the beginning there was no response. But because we continued to execute our devotional activities with patience, people gradually began to understand the importance of this movement, and now they are eagerly participating. One should not be impatient in discharging devotional service, but should take instructions from the spiritual master and execute them with patience, depending on the mercy of Guru and Krishna. The successful execution of Krishna conscious activities requires both patience and confidence. A newly married girl naturally expects offspring from her husband, but she cannot expect to have them immediately after marriage. Of course, as soon as she is married, she can attempt to get a child, but she must surrender to her husband, confident that her child will develop and be born in due time. Similarly, in devotional service, surrender means that one has to become confident. The devotee thinks, Avashya Rakshibe Krishna. Krishna will surely protect me and give me help for the successful execution of devotional service. This is called confidence.
Very good. So these examples that Prabhupada is giving us are pretty straightforward, isn't it? And we mentioned it, isn't it, at the beginning, like 5 or 6 classes ago. I like how Prabhupada talks about how he gives himself as an example. He says at the beginning here, this movement was started single-handedly, and at the beginning there was no response. In fact, um, they talk about the 11 years, the 11 missing years of Jesus. Supposedly when Jesus, like when the biographers of Jesus, there's 11 years that are missing in his biography. And from the age of like more or less 22 to 30, whatever, to 33 or before, like before he starts his sort of Jesus movement and then, gets crucified shortly after. So some people say Jesus went to India, actually. I don't know if you know, but in Kashmir, in Kashmir, there's an area where there's a tomb supposedly of Jesus Christ, and it's run by Muslims actually, and they claim that this was where Jesus. So Jesus, after he came back, so supposedly maybe he went to India during those 11 years, and he met some sadhus and maybe some Vaishnavas, because he was certainly speaking monotheism, which is what Vaishnavas believe, one God and so on, and he came back to the Middle East and preached and then got crucified, supposedly didn't die on the cross. I mean, Prabhupada does say in the purport in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, it would be foolish to think that he was killed. So is Prabhupada referring to the soul of Jesus that, never dies, the soul never dies, or is he actually talking about the physical body? So some people claim, not very academic, like you won't convince, Oxford professors and Harvard University professors about this, but sort of marginal knowledge banks theories claim that he just went into some sort of yogic trance, and then when all the Romans were gone, he went, he came back to life and he left and he just said, good to see you guys later. You tried to kill me. That's how you thank me for my preaching. I'm going back to India. And then went back to India, supposedly got married, had children, and died over there. Anyway, why am I mentioning this? Because there is a one missing year of Prabhupada. Prabhupada arrived in New York in 1965, and the records of where he was and so on really start in 1966. And there's only one clue. Look, we have no idea how he lived, how he survived in the grueling cold winter of New York of 1965. We don't know. There's only one statement where Prabhupada says, you could not imagine how difficult it was. So that one missing year. So why am I mentioning this is because here Prabhupada says, right, about being patient. Like he was patient, one should not be impatient in Krishna consciousness. So it refers to also, to both your advancement, like, oh my God, how come I'm not a pure devotee yet? How come I'm not, so advanced yet? Patience, child, patience. And also, why hasn't anybody, why only 2 people became devotees in my preaching, or I opened a temple and no one's coming, or so Prabhupada says here that the Krishna consciousness movement was started single-handedly by Prabhupada, And in the beginning, there was no response. But Prabhupada didn't give up. It's interesting. I'll show you this screen now. Right now, I'm editing the French translation of Yadubar Prabhu's movie. I think I mentioned it the other day about the what's it called? The movie, the Hare Krishna movie, you know, by Yadubar Prabhu. And there's a section in there where Hari Shori Prabhu tells the story of how Prabhupada would go to the place where the boats are in New York City to see where, when is the next boat leaving back to India. And apparently he did it a few times. Like he would go to and then the man who works there kind of laughed at him and said, Swamiji, you keep coming and asking when the boat is coming, but you never leave. But it's interesting that, okay, Prabhupada didn't leave back to India. He stuck it out, as we say. He patiently, that's the key point. He patiently stayed in America. But you can imagine what was going on in the mind of Prabhupada. Prabhupada is a pure devotee, we believe. Senapati Bhakta of Lord Chaitanya, liberated soul, we believe. And even he's having difficulty in the sense that he's just like thinking, this is too hard. This is too difficult. I'm going back to India. And his frustration and we could maybe say impatience or, feeling dejected, his dejection that no one's coming and it's so hard, pushes him literally to go and see, okay, when is the next boat to India? But then, he remembers his guru's instruction and, okay, he doesn't follow through with buying a ticket to India, but he did it several times. This is a historical fact. So I love that example because it shows the humanity of Prabhupada, of how pure devotees, they're not affected by the three modes of nature, but they do feel, emotions. And one of them can be sort of a spiritual frustration, a spiritual frustration in the sense that, okay, this is my devotional service. My guru asked me to preach in America. I'm trying my best. I had 2 heart attacks and no one's coming forward. No one. So this frustration we can see is not material, it's spiritual, but it's a frustration nonetheless, And because of his patience, he said, okay, anyway, I'll continue a little bit longer, and then you see how Krishna, reciprocated and sent him thousands of disciples and, traveling around the world for 14 years and, the miracle that he did, that Prabhupada did and that ISKCON became, And then, patience, the example of the wife the newly married girl who wants a child, woman who wants a child, and she has to wait, of course, 9 or 10 months to have the child. So similarly, we have to be patient with whatever service we're doing, with our own state of consciousness, like, wanting to become very advanced or wanting to become a better devotee, and also with our Krishna conscious projects, Like you're gonna, for example, the devotees in Pakistan, they're definitely gonna need a lot of patience for, the large population of Pakistan to convert to Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. It's not gonna happen in 24 hours, right? With all the heavy, Muslim conditioning that is there. So patience is advised. Okay, unless anyone has any questions, we can go to Mehak now, and Mehak can read the next verse. The next paragraph.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
As already explained, one should not be idle but should be very enthusiastic about executing the regulatory principles. Tat karma pravartana. Neglect of the regulatory principles will destroy devotional service. In this Krishna consciousness movement, there are 4 basic regulatory principles: forbidding illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. A devotee must be very enthusiastic about following these principles. If he becomes slack in following any of them, his progress will certainly be checked. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore recommends tat karma pravartanat. One must strictly follow the regulatory principles of Vaidhi Bhakti. In addition to these four prohibitions, Yama, there are positive regulatory principles, Niyama, such as the daily chanting of the 16 rounds on Japamala bead. These regulatory activities must be faithfully performed with enthusiasm. This is called Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat, a varied engagement in devotional service.
Thank you. I have a question. This is just curiosity again about Pakistan. Maybe if some of the gentlemen can answer, or like in India today, it's become very degraded. You know, especially in urban settings, almost all the four regulative principles, they're broken. You know, everyone is eating meat. You know, I don't know if there's so much gambling, but you know, and then intoxication. People are taking cigarettes and alcohol, and you know, men and women are having extramarital relationships before, you know, premarital relationships. Um, there's a famous actress, I forgot her name. Mukherjee, I forgot her name. My guru Bhakti Charu Maharaj was the guru, or is the guru of her mother, and so I was speaking to her brother, and he works in Bombay, and he was telling me, and this was like 20 years ago. I was like, how much, you know, how much is there marital, you know, premarital sex in Bombay? And he's like, this is rampant. So I'm just wondering, in Pakistan, is it a little bit more restrained in terms of the four regulative principles, or is it also very loose, so to speak? I'm curious about the local state of affairs. Anyone can answer? Who knows a little bit
Yes,
about?
Prabhuji, having like alcohol, it is very common here. Even Muslims are having alcohol, and
They're not supposed to, right?
yes,
Even
and
Hindus are
other
also having.
gambling also. This is common and already in large cities, and other things also. Yes, these are common things, and
Really?
premarital affairs are also common here. So
Even though it's a strict Muslim country.
yes, yes,
Yes, even
Wow.
though in Hindus are also doing these things, Prabhu.
yes,
Yeah.
Uh, Before marriage, after marriage, they're having
I mean,
affairs
that's
and
not surprising, because if they're degraded
no,
in
no.
India, they'll be degraded in other places too. But I was thinking, because you know, the Muslims, at least they're, from what I hear, you know, they're kind of strict about this, isn't it? Or is
No,
that just
Prabhuji, it's
in
not
word?
fair.
Really, huh? It's not real at street level.
as you mentioned in your previous classes, Prabhu, Kal Yuga is everywhere.
Traffic is
Wow.
everywhere, yes. And Maya is so
Wow.
strong, so everyone is like drowning
Wow.
in that.
May Lord Chaitanya save us. Okay, so we have our next reader. Again, if anyone has any questions or anything, you know, raise your hand. Poonam,
Yes, Prabhuji, can I
please.
ask a question about
Yes.
your journey? I want to ask about your journey, how you just enter in this Krishna consciousness and what really hits you inside that this is the thing that I only want in my life. And have you ever experienced the criticism or hate or anything like that? And how did you like deal with them?
You see, I came from a family that was actually quite liberal in that sense. I don't know if Bimala Prasad Prabhu told you, and I'm sorry to do some self-advertisement here, but I finished a book that I'm going to self-publish very soon. I'm just editing it. It's a memoir. You know, memoir is kind of like autobiography, but not in the sense of covering your whole life, but just it covers, a memoir means it's autobiographical, but it covers only a certain window of life in your life. So when I was at Oxford, I had a professor there, a very nice gentleman. I think I told you about him, Professor Andrew Lindsay, this British Anglican priest who's also a professor at Oxford and also born in Oxford. And he was my advisor when I was studying Christianity. And he is like the world authority on Christian vegetarianism. He's written like 20 books on how Christians should be vegetarian, you know. And when I told him a little bit about my life, and one day he said, he said, wow, you really have to write about your story and how you became a devotee of Krishna. And he said, he told me once, he said, do you realize how many people would love to be in the mind of a Hare Krishna monk? And, oh, you lived in America and France and India. You have to write a book. You have to write a book. So following his cue, and this was, now it's becoming ridiculously long ago, like 12 years ago, I started writing this memoir I called it American Krishna. Did I tell you the story about how Prabhupada mentioned this word? This word American Krishna comes from Prabhupada. Did I mention that or not? That story. Jatin, you say no. Okay. You guys, let me tell you this, because this, again, you see me, you know me, I'm all into Yukta Vairagya and spreading Krishna consciousness like Prabhupada was, in outside of India. So this term American Krishna is a term that Prabhupada actually came up with. And the story is that there was a disciple of Prabhupada called Balavanta Prabhu, who was doing some preaching in a political context. You see, in America in the 1970s, at one point, the devotees started a political party called the In God We Trust Party. And that's because on the US American dollar bill, every dollar bill, whether $1 or $5 or $10, it says "In God We Trust." And so they start, with Prabhupada's blessings, they started this political party called the In God We Trust Party. And so Satsuru Maharaj tells the story. Satsuru Maharaj, as you know, is the author of the Lilamrita, which a book you must all read. This wonderful biography of Prabhupada. So Satsuru Maharaj showed a photograph of Balavanta Prabhu. Here's Balavanta Prabhu. He's a little bit older now. And on the picture, Balavanta Prabhu is like here. He had long hair. Not long, dirty hair, but, normal hair, no shika. And he had a suit and tie. And when Prabhupada saw that picture, according to Satsuru Maharaj, and Balavanta Prabhu himself confirmed to me the story, he said, this is what I want. That we be known, so we means, the Hare Krishnas, and this is in America. He says that we be known by who? By Americans in general. This is what I want, that we be known as American Krishnas. Like Pakistani Krishnas, or, Mexican Vaishnavas, Chinese devotees, So American Krishna. So when I heard that, I ran with it. And so I wrote a book, this memoir called American Krishna, which, talks about my struggles with a huge disinheritance and a struggle with my parents wanting me to go to college, but my guru and my temple president not allowing me or not discouraging me from going to college, and a desire to enter the Grihastha ashram, but being in the Brahmachari ashram, and some ghost episode, some ghost possession in Mayapur. First time I go to India, and so it's like about 200, 300 pages. And if you guys want, I'll share with you the PDF of it if you want to read it. But just to answer your question, I met devotees. Really, the key factor was when I went to a lecture in I was 20 years old, and I was in Paris, and I went to a lecture of Bhakti Charuswami. I had received a book of Prabhupada with all the addresses of all the ISKCON centers worldwide. I had received it in the Los Angeles airport from a devotee. He had either sold it to me or asked me a donation or given it to me for free. I forgot. And at that time, I was in high school, finishing high school, first year of college, and I was interested in Buddhism and sort of, ancient civilizations from South America, like the Mayas or the Aztecs or the Incas. But I had not much access to India or to Hinduism. But I took that small book, Message of Godhead, with me to Paris. I was doing a year abroad college program. I was going to the Sorbonne University in Paris via Cornell University in America. And I happened to call the temple out of curiosity. I was like, wow, look, this ISKCON has so many centers worldwide. Oh, they have one in Paris. Let me call. So one afternoon, I called the number, and the temple president answered and told me, oh, well, this is a temple. And in a few days, we have a famous Swami from India called Bhakti Charuswami. He'll be giving a lecture at the such and such cultural center at such and such time. So I went there with a friend of mine, and I sat down, and then Bhakti Charuswami came on stage, and when he spoke about reincarnation, about Bhagavad Gita, ABC, you're not the body, what you think of at the time of death determines your next birth, and what you cultivate in this life, the mentality you cultivate in this life determines what you get in your next life. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, I felt, I felt like, there's a movie that came out recently called The Amateur. Has anyone seen it? It's not a great movie, but no? Oh, I deleted it. Oh no, here it is. So there's a scene in The Amateur where this ordinary guy, goes into some top secret, government agency, and there he discovers all these, like, you know, all these high secret files, and that's how I felt like, because after the Bhakti Swami's lecture, he asked if anyone wanted to go on stage and do a kirtan. I had never done a kirtan in my life, and so I went on stage. I didn't even know the Mahamantra, and then he started a kirtan, and here's the scene that I was telling you about. I kind of felt like this, here's the main actor, and he's looking at these files. Oh, how come it's not playing? Anyway, I wanted to show you the actual, but it's not showing. Anyway, I really felt like I had kind of tapped into some knowledge or some experience that was really, 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 really new to me. Like, I was shocked just by how, you see his face. So he's like looking at all these files, and he's like, what is this? What is this? So that's kind of how I felt like, wow, And so I came home, and then, there was a preaching center near where I lived, near my father's home. So I would go 3 times a week and hear the Bhagavad Gita lecture, and then do a little kirtan and take some prasad, and then I would go to the temple on Sundays. And my parents were okay. My mother was in my parents were divorced. My mother in Los Angeles, my father in Paris. So my father got to know first. But what really was hard for them wasn't that, I changed religion. As a matter of fact, I remember one time my mom, she told me, I don't care I don't care if you have another religion. All I wanted, you have a college degree. Because, I was influenced by the temple president a few weeks later to drop out of college, which I did. But 15 years later, or 12, 13 years later, I went back to college and, went to University of California. I studied religion, and then at Oxford also. But the tragedy is my mother never got to see that, because she got cancer at age 59 when I was still a sort of fanatic brahmachari. And she was heartbroken that, her son had dropped out of college because, she had immigrated to America from Croatia after the Second World War, very poor, had to get a job right away, and with her poor mother. And here was her son, throwing it all away to join the crazy Hare Krishna cult, and drop out of Cornell, which is an Ivy League. So that really, if my father was a little bit, yeah, whatever, he does whatever he wants, and let him do whatever. He's a grown man. He was a little disappointed, but my mother especially, she was extremely disappointed by me dropping out of college. So it wasn't, it wasn't like a theological, like, oh my God, he has become, like the Muslims, right? Oh my God, he left Islam and he joined another religion. Oh my God, no, she didn't care at all. Like, my parents didn't care. So it wasn't at all an ideological thing. It was just me who misled, or yeah, I would say not properly advised. Because, this temple president could have easily told me, okay, look, stay in school. You have 3 more years to finish your degree. Be a good student. In fact, why don't you start a Bhakti Yoga center on campus? You can preach there, and then if you want to live as a brahmachari after you graduate, fine, That's what he should have preached to me. So that was a big event for my for my mother. So, and my father also. So it was, again, just to finish, it wasn't a theological thing that, oh my God, he changed religion, he became Hare Krishna. It was, oh my God, he dropped out of Cornell University. That was the main thing. That's why I would never recommend anyone now to drop out of college. But that was a lot of the preaching that was going on, in the 1970s, 80s, even 90s. This idea that, living at home is Maya, material education is Maya, course, in one way it is, but as we saw from that verse from Sri Upanishad that I quoted to, I don't know if it was to Raki or to Tulsi Manjari, I think it was her name, or, we're supposed to cultivate, knowledge of this world and Krishna consciousness side by side. Unless you become a sannyasi and you renounce the world completely, then then you're fully absorbed in only this, Shravanam Kirtanam all day, or like Haridas Thakur chanting all day. But if you have engagement in the world, you're supposed to do kind of both side by side. And I was kind of too immature to think kind of on my own terms and ask, well, wait a second, is this a good advice? And not so. My mistake was to sort of blindly follow that suggestion. And it was definitely the Tepon president's mistake to preach that to me. And so that created a big repercussion, as I said, with my parents being quite shocked and disappointed. And then that led to a huge disinheritance. I was disinherited of $9 million that I probably would have gotten if I had not dropped out of Cornell University. So anyway, I write about it in this book, American Krishna. So if you guys are interested, I'll share it with you.
That's good. Please
Okay.
share with us. Okay,
Enough speaking about me. Let's focus back on Rupa Goswami. So who is reading now, and we're at the paragraph furthermore in order to be successful, right?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, so Mehak you read, right? Because after Mehak we have
Yes,
Poonam.
Yes, sir. Yes, Prabhuji.
So now Poonam can read?
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Furthermore, in order to be successful in devotional service, one must give up the association of the undesirable people. This includes karmis, jnanis, yogis, and other non-devotees. Once, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was spoken by one of his householder devotees about the general principle of Vaishnavism, as well as the general routine activities of the Vaishnava, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately replied, Asat Sangha Tyaga Ei Vaishnava Achara. Characteristically, a Vaishnava is one who gives up the association of worldly people or non-devotees. Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura has therefore recommended Tandera
Tandera Charana Sevi
Sevi.
Bhakti Sanivas.
One has to live in the company of pure devotees and execute the regulative principles laid down by the previous acharyas, the six Goswamis, namely Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatana Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, and Sri Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami. If one lives in the association of devotees, there is little chance of associating with non-devotees. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is opening many centers just to invite people to live in the company of devotees and practice the regulative principle of spiritual life.
Remember that thank you, Poonam. Remember that in the 1970s, when Prabhupada is writing this, everyone who becomes a devotee, who becomes a member of ISKCON, literally physically moves into a temple. You were even preached that, you should, living outside is Maya. So, Prabhupada is saying here, we're opening, living in the association of devotees. Right? The International Society of Krishna Consciousness is opening many centers just to invite people to live in the company of devotees. So there was this phenomena that's why you have the language, like when you hear Prabhupada's disciples, they often speak of when they joined. It's funny, like you ask a Christian convert or even someone who converted to Islam, for example, when did you convert to Islam, isn't it? Or when did you accept Jesus Christ into your life? When did you convert to Buddhism? But in the language of ISKCON in the 1970s, they don't say, I converted to Vaishnavism in 1973, or I accepted Krishna as God in 1971. The language is, I joined in 1969. I joined in 1976, because literally there was this mood that you physically, like, you get up, and you leave your place and you move into a temple, and that constitutes your conversion experience. And it's interesting because when you look, for example, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the pastime of the Kurma Brahmana, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Kurma Brahmana story, who knows the story of the Kurma Brahmana and Lord Chaitanya from Chaitanya Charitamrita? Can you say in a few sentences?
No.
No? Okay. Well, it's in the Madhya Lila, chapter 17. The Lord begins his tour of South India. And so what happened is that, here, I'll just share it with you. Lord Chaitanya goes on a tour of South India, and he stays at the house of, not Kurma, but maybe Vasudev. No, it was Kurma Brahmana. And there, so he spends Chaturmasya for like several months in South India, at the house of this Kurma Brahmana, who's a grihastha. And afterwards, after Chaturmasya, when Lord Chaitanya wants to leave, this Kurma Brahmana comes to him and says, my Lord, please, I cannot tolerate this family life, and it's too much, and let me please go with you. Let me please go with you. In other words, let me take sannyas with you and leave. And very interesting, Lord Chaitanya says, no, you stay here, stay in your home. And then he gives him that famous statement, Yare deka tare kaha Krishna upadesh, amar agyay guru hanya tarai desh. You see this verse here, text 126? The Brahmana begged Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, my dear Lord, kindly show me favor and let me go with you. I can no longer tolerate the waves of misery caused by materialistic life. And then Mahaprabhu's like, be quiet. Don't speak like this again. Better to remain at home and chant the holy names of Krishna. And then he tells him this super famous verse. You should all know this verse. It's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 728, very famous. Yare deka tare kaha Krishna upadesh, amar agyaya guru hanya tarai desh. Right? Amar agyaya. That means under my order, become a guru and deliver a desh, this country. Deliver Pakistan. Lord Chaitanya tells him, instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Sri Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita, and end up in a Karachi jail because you preach to Muslims. But this is somehow or other, you have to somehow do this. Instruct everyone in your land, which means Pakistan, to follow the orders, good luck, to follow the orders of Lord Sri Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, Prabhupada added this because, the actual classical Bengali doesn't say, it just says Krishna Upadesh. So Upadesh, we know is instruction, but Prabhupada in his translation sometimes took liberties, and added some words. Like, for example, when he talks about how Prahlad Maharaj didn't go to movie theaters, he didn't go to cinema, but obviously there's no cinema in the time of Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj. So the Sanskrit from the Bhagavatam could not possibly say cinema. Shukadev Goswami did not write cinema, but Prabhupada wrote cinema in his translation. So he does this a lot of times. And so here in this case, for example, he adds, he says, the orders of Lord Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's Prabhupada's addition. In this way, become a spiritual master, right? Under my instruction. You see, under my order. Amar means my, and try to liberate. So now what's interesting, this is where I wanted to get to. Look at the purport. So look at the contrast. Here, Prabhupada is saying, the International Society is opening many centers just to invite people to live in the company of devotees. And there was definitely a mood which Prabhupada he participated in this mood that, hey, just drop everything and join the temple, live in the temple. So that's why you had these big temples where like everyone was living. I heard that, for example, in the New York temple, it was so packed, devotees were sleeping on the stairs. Like, okay, I have step number 26, and you have step number 22, and that's where they slept at night because all the rooms were packed like sardines. So you have this, but then contrasting to that, look what Prabhupada says here in this purport. It's very relevant, especially to you, because you're mostly ladies, and therefore you're mostly going to live at home your lives as Vaishnavis. And look what Prabhupada says. This is this, and the gentlemen who are also here with us, there's good chances that you'll also be married and living at home. So he says here, look, this is the sublime mission of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Many people come and inquire whether they have to give up family life to join the society, right? But that is not our mission, Prabhupada says. Isn't it interesting? Prabhupada says this is not our mission. One can remain comfortably, what does he say? One can remain comfortably in one's home, in his residence. We simply request everyone to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Right? If one is a little literate, he can read Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is so much more, that is so much the better. So you see the contrast. On the one side, there's this mood, okay, drop everything, move into a temple, join the society, like physically, not just join, by, okay, I'm a member of ISKCON, but I'm a doctor. I heard that practically all of you are doctors or studying to be doctors. Congratulations. Now I know where to go when and if I get sick. And stay at home, like continue being a doctor. Just add Krishna into your life by chanting Hare Krishna, and get together with your family members and chant together. Do artik and stuff like that. Do kirtan together. So that's the Siddhanta ultimately, isn't it? But in those years, in those 1970s, for whatever reason, Prabhupada also had very little time. Remember, like he knew he was going to leave his body quite soon, so he didn't want his movement to disappear after he passed away. So maybe one of his motivations was, okay, if I can get men and women to become sort of full-time, quote unquote, devotees who are like full-time missionaries, then first of all, it will be safe for them, because it's true, when you actually live literally in a house or in a building where you have devotees around you when you wake up and when you go to bed, you feel a lot more Krishna conscious. You feel literally a lot more Krishna conscious. But also, maybe they can do more missionary work in less time. So they can, establish more temples, and the more temples that are established, the more sanghas that are established, then the more chances that this movement will not, dissolve or disappear after I leave my body. That was kind of like Prabhupada's thinking. We could surmise. Okay, so let's go back to our next paragraph here, and we have next on the list, we have Roshni. Roshni, if you'd like to read, the floor is yours.
Hare Krishna. Devotional service means transcendental activities. On the transcendental platform, there is no contamination by the three modes of material nature. This is called Vishuddha Sattva, the platform of pure goodness, or goodness free from contamination by the qualities of passion and ignorance. In this Krishna consciousness movement, we require everyone to rise early in the morning by 4 a.m. and attend Mangalarti or morning worship, then read Srimad Bhagavatam, perform Kirtana, and so forth. Thus, we hold continuous activities in devotional service 24 hours daily. This is called Satovriti, or following in the footsteps of the previous Acharyas who expertly filled every moment of time with Krishna conscious activities.
Very good. So obviously, you're gonna, you're not going to go to a temple at 4 in the morning. I mean, unless you live close by, great. But one thing that is important and that should be stressed is that this principle of waking up early, who hasn't heard of the concept of Brahma Muhurta? Raise your digital hand if you don't know this concept of Brahma Muhurta. Okay, who is Ria? Really? Okay. Jatin also. Pinky. So Brahma Muhurta is the most important part of the day for our sadhana. It's 48 minutes, and during, depending on where you are on the planet and what time of year you are, it shifts. But it's 48 minutes that starts an hour and a half before the sunrise. So let's say, for example, the sunrise is at 6:30 a.m. So that means that from 5 o'clock a.m. to 5:48 a.m., that's Brahma Muhurta. You get my point? And it's very easy to see when Brahma Muhurta is in Pakistan right now, for example. You type on Google, okay, sunrise in Karachi, let's say you're living in Karachi, sunrise, Karachi, 2nd October 2025. And it's, gives you that time. Then you subtract 1.5 hours. And then from that time only, that's when Brahma Muhurta starts. And it lasts 48 minutes. And that period is considered the most auspicious time of the day. It's the time when all our acharyas recommend that you should be awake and clean and, worshiping Radha and Krishna, chanting japa, hearing a lecture, doing your puja, doing kirtan. But that is really, really, really the most important period of the day. So again, whether you're living in a temple or not is irrelevant. But the principle of waking up early, possibly for Brahma Muhurta. Of course, some countries, they live like really close to like far from the equator. So in summertime, the sunrise may be at like 2 a.m, so it's impractical. But then they're lucky because in the winter it's quite late, so they can justify getting up really late because Brahma Muhurta doesn't start, let's say, till 8 a.m. or something. Excuse me. But the point, my friends, is that you really do, this is really important, this, and we're talking about this because Prabhupada mentions it in the purport here. You have to be enthusiastic for your devotional service. Jatin, you want to ask or add a question to that?
I just wanted to ask, it is basically 48 minutes before sunrise, or
No, that's actually the Shiva Muhurta. It's basically, there's 2 Muhurtas that start an hour and a half before sunrise. The one that, let's say sunrise is at 6:30, so minus 45 minutes or 48, that's the Shiva Muhurta, which is also very auspicious, but not as auspicious. It's when you already start seeing light, and it culminates at sunrise. So that 45 minutes before sunrise, that's when that's beautiful sun, that sort of artistic time when the clouds are red with light, and then just before the sunrise. That's also a very auspicious time. But even more auspicious is the 45 minutes that start starting an hour and a half before sunrise. You get it? Yeah?
basically, I just wanted to clarify, let's suppose sunrise is at 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and we are going 1.5 hour backwards, so it would be 4:30.
Yes.
So the time from 4:30 to 5:18 would be this Brahma.
Absolutely. That's it.
Okay.
That's it. So that time, guys, excuse me, is important. You have to try to catch that time, so if it's reasonable. So that means you should try to, go to sleep early enough because, your sadhana really starts the night before, because you want to sleep at least, 6 hours, 7 hours, isn't it? You want to sleep that many hours. So if you know that, okay, I should wake up at 5 tomorrow because Brahma Muhurta starts at 5, then you don't want to go to sleep after 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. because then you may get up, but you'll be so exhausted because you only slept, 4 or 5 hours, right? I mean, some people they function fine with 5 or 4 hours, and all glories to that. But most of us, need need at least 5, 6, 7 hours. Some people really, maybe need 8 even. So yeah, I found it, guys. I was, if you notice, my eyes were doing something. I found the picture of Prabhupada with mustache. Ta-da! And I'm gonna send it to you right now, so that you can show anybody who. Well, ladies, you don't have the blessing of being able to grow a mustache. You're not missing much, but the men here, if someone, if you feel like you have a little beard and stuff. Of course, there is that statement where Prabhupada says, he was asked about that and he said, I was not initiated. Okay, But you don't have to tell that part of the story to those who criticize you. You can say, look, here's a picture of Prabhupada with his mustache. So what's the problem? He was a grihasta and he had a mustache on. So here, look, I'm going to share with you right now. Share. Where's my WhatsApp map app? Oh, here it is. You see that? That's Prabhupada with a mustache. With a mustache. So don't feel bad, Jatin, that you have a mustache. Look, Prabhupada had a mustache. Okay, back to important stuff. Who's our next reader? I think it is Roshni. You just read, right?
Yes.
Yes. So now we have Eshwar Prabhu. Kishore, you're coming up. You're coming out in three readers.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Jai.
Am I audible?
Please, if one strictly follows the advice.
Okay. If one strictly follows the advice given in this verse by Srila Rupa Goswami, namely being enthusiastic, being confident, being passionate, giving up the association of the unwanted persons, following the regulative principles, and remaining in the association of devotees, one is sure to advance in devotional service. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that the cultivation of knowledge by philosophical speculation, the collection of mundane opulence by the advancement of the fruitive activities, and the desire for yogis, siddhis, material perfections are all contrary to the principles of devotional service. One has to become the thoroughly callous to such non-permanent activities and turn his attention instead to the regulative principles of devotional service. According to Bhagavad Gita 2.69, या निश- या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जगति संयमी
Sorry.
तस्यां जागृति भूतानि सा निशा दृश्यतो मुनिः. Shall we continue?
Yeah, read the translation, please.
Okay. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-control, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective stage.
Mm. Isn't it? Especially if people who go to nightclubs, you know,
So,
they go to nightclubs and they come out, they come out at 5, 6 in the morning, and that's when devotees get up, We get up to start chanting Hare Krishna, and they're going to quote unquote bed. And it's also not just in terms of time of the day, although that's true, but it's also in terms of, mindset, like worldview. The devotee tries to be Krishna conscious, and his or her whole life is about God and serving God and somehow connecting God in their life and helping others come to God in their own lives and so on. Whereas a materialist is like, so they see completely differently. So there's a conceptual night and day difference, and literally also time. I remember one time we were traveling Sankirtan, and we stopped in the preaching center in Columbus, Ohio, which is near New Vrindavan, and Radhanath Swami was there, and he gave a talk the night before or something, and then he spent the whole night actually counseling some disciples who were going through some depression, or I forgot what it was, but the whole night he was, or at least those 5-6 hours from maybe 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. And so the next morning, I remember when we went to Mangalartik, he was still there talking. And I remember if it was me or someone next to me mentioned to him, Maharaj, you've been up all night, like, wow. And he chuckled and he said, what is night for all beings is a time of awakening for the self-control, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the. So he was, taking himself as a materialist who spent, who is opposite to the devotees. Of course, he was preaching all night, so he was doing extra devotional service. Not that he was, but it was, humble and funny. He makes some nice jokes sometimes. I remember once we were, in that same time, we were in New Vrindavan, and we were traveling in a van, 4 or 5 men, and we would go from university to university and mostly try to sneak around the security guards and try to sell a few Prabhupada's books before getting caught by the police and being told to leave. He was like, because especially private universities, you're not allowed to go on campus. And I remember he was giving class and he was talking about how, devotees in these vans should cooperate and be humble with each other. And I remember he said, if you should see the other devotees in your van as masters, and you should, try to serve the other devotees. And if you have this service attitude towards the devotees, then you will not be in a van. You will not be living in a van. You will be living in a Vrindavan. Vrindavan. You get it? Okay, who's next? We had Ishwar, and after Ishwar, we have Riya.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Engagement in the devotional service of the Lord is the life and soul of the living entity. It is the desired goal and the supreme perfection of human life. One has to become confident about this, and one also has to be confident that all activities other than devotional service, such as mental speculation, fruitive work, or mystic endeavor, will never yield any enduring benefit. Complete confidence in the path of devotional service will enable one to attain the desired goal, but attempting to follow other paths will only succeed in making one restless. In the
Restless.
17th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, one must be calmly convinced that those who have given up devotional service to engage in the severe austerities for other purposes are not purified in their minds despite their advanced austerities, because they have no information of the transcendental loving service of the Lord.
I love this statement. Thank you. Riya. About being restless. We spoke about this last time. Remember how we speak about if you spend too much time on social media, or if you absorb your mind in anything that's not, even, I'm sure you're like, for example, you're studying medicine, isn't it? Now, I'm not saying you have to, not whoever's studying still for your medicine, you know what it's like. You spend a whole day dealing with biology and chemistry and molecular biology and, like, so all these classes and physics and chemistry, and after a whole day of study, it's like, you're restless. Your mind is restless. Why? Because you absorb your mind in okay, something you must, because it's your career. You must. I'm not, you must do that. But the result, though, you absorb your mind 10 hours a day in something that's not God, your mind is restless, isn't it? You feel restless. You feel tired. You feel irritable. You feel heavy. Same thing when you have time and you spend time watching cricket or scrolling on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and consuming non-devotional content, you end up restless. And when you break the regulative principles, you feel restless. It's almost like a scientific thing. That's why we talk about the science of devotional service. It really is a science. These three gunas is really a science. And so when you break the four regulative principles, then you let tamagun and rajagun influence you a lot more. And the result of tamagun and rajagun is suffering. Who can tell me the difference between, this is from Bhagavad Gita. You guys should know this. Krishna talks about happiness. We all want happiness. So happiness is a really important topic in life, isn't it? So what is the difference between, how does Krishna describe happiness in Sattvaguna and happiness in Rajaguna? For extra credit. Kishori.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, the difference between happiness in Sattva is that in the happiness in Sattva, we feel bitter, then we feel happy. And in Rachodhan, first we feel happy and then we feel bitter and painful.
Yes, very good. What are the exact words that Krishna talks about? He uses the word nectar and what's the opposite of nectar? Starts with a P.
Poison.
Yes. Who said it?
Krishna Priya.
Krishna Priya. Poison. So poison at the beginning and nectar at the end. It's just like, you wake up in the morning and it's cold outside and it's all dark. Like here right now, I'm living in this it's a room. It's kind of like an attic room, and France, where I mean, all of France except the south of France is cold. And in the morning, the sun rises quite late. So at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, I'm sorry, I wake up like maybe 5:30, 5 o'clock. It's so dark outside, and as soon as I take off my blanket, I feel the cold, and I do not want to walk down these cold stairs and go into the shower. I just want to stay in bed. But somehow, if I just force myself to turn on a lecture of Prabhupada or a lecture of my Guru Maharaj or whatever, and somehow get my my tamaguna body out of the bed, and then somehow get it to that shower and take a shower, and then sattva kicks in, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, I'm happy I woke up, because now I'm fresh, and now I can focus on my book or on my my homework or my japa. So nectar at the end, but poison at the beginning. On the other hand, we've all had experience, or yeah, I'm sure, this is Kali Yuga. We've all had experience of some type of sense gratification. It's wonderful at the beginning. Ooh, 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 wow, wow, wow. Uh, uh, the what's it called when you have fireworks, and then no question, always frustration will come and anger, isn't it? Because Krishna talks about it in the Gita. When one contemplates the object of the senses, one develops attachment from them. From that attachment, anger arises. From anger, bewilderment of memory. When bewilderment of memory, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. That those two verses that I quoted to my nephew Eric in Stanford when we were watching that Star Wars movie. So it's like a science. So coming back to what Prabhupada says here, we should remember, and the thing is, we're so conditioned. I mean, at least speaking for myself, we're so conditioned that even though we know, like we've had the experience countless times, even in this lifetime, what to speak of past life, we know, like, hey, it's not gonna make me happy. I'm gonna be restless, but still we do it, and then we become restless or angry or frustrated. And we'd conclude like, okay, I've learned a good lesson. Let me only do Krishna conscious activities, Let me really follow strictly the four regulative principles. No. We'll fall again into Maya, and again be kicked by Maya. That's our conditioning, that's our conditioning. But somehow we have to stick to Krishna's lotus feet. Somehow we have to stick to the Vaishnavas. Somehow we have to stick to the holy name and to Krishna Katha, and stay above the water, surviving. So now we have, again, if anyone has a question or anything, please go ahead. I think now we have Komal Kundanani. Komala or Komala, I don't know how you
Hare
say your name.
Krishna.
Hari.
It is further stated in the seventh canto, although mental speculators and fruitive actors may perform great austerities and penances, they still fall down because
You
they
know
do
what
not.
you know what penance means? Tapasya.
They still fall down because they do not have information about the lotus feet of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord, however, never fall down. In Bhagavad Gita 9.31, the Supreme Personality of Godhead assures Arjuna Kaunteya Prajya Prati Jane Hi Na Me Bhaktah Pranashayati. O son of
Yes.
Kunti, declare it bodily that my devotee never praises. Again in Bhagavad Gita 2.40, Krishna
Wait, I think
says,
you kindly read us that. Okay, read that verse and we'll go back. Yeah, go ahead.
Neha bhi karma nashoshati prataya vayo na vidyate savalpam ape asya dharmasya triyate mahato bhayat. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear.
So we'll go back to thank you, Komal. So we'll go back to this verse here that Prabhupada paraphrases. Although mental speculators and fruitive actors may perform great austerities, they still fall down. This is a super important verse, especially if you like the who here likes this debate or this discussion between the Mayavadis and the devotees. Is that something that you like to hear? Yes, Barka does. Okay, Roshni, good, because it's meant for like the intellectual type. Not everyone likes to discuss this, but for those who do, and so then we've had a few hands up. Let's dive into this point because it's this verse that Prabhupada doesn't actually quote. He only refers to it, but it's actually from 10 what is it 10:2:32 is probably the most important verse from Shastra to defeat Mayavadism, really, or at least not to defeat Mayavadism, but it's a verse that declares what is the Vaishnava and the Bhagavatam's opinion of Mayavadis, of the Mayavadi who merges with Brahman. So should we go there for a small parenthesis, a small detour? Yes, going once, going twice.
Yes.
Going 3 times. Okay, but before we do that, here's that question that I had for you. When Krishna says protects one from the greatest type of fear, as Komal read, what is that greatest type of fear? The Vaishnava Acharyas mentioned that. What is the greatest fear?
Fall down in the material world?
More specifically. Yes, it's correct, but there's even more specific, our acharyas say.
Little advancement on this
Forget
path.
Krishna.
Yeah, it's to come back in an animal form, or
Come
in other
back
words,
to Krishna.
to reincarnate in a non-human form. Because if you have a non-human form in your next life, it's really hard to remember Krishna. Unless you're like Bharat Maharaj and you come back as a stag or as a deer in your next life, and you're blessed with the memory from your human life in your past life. And you know the story of Bharat Maharaj, right? Everyone knows it. King Bharat who came back for one life as a deer, but he remembered his life as Bharat. But usually you don't remember your past life. So if you reincarnate as an animal in your next life, then you have a problem because you forget Krishna. And that's what devotees fear the most, is forgetfulness of Krishna. So yes, all your answers were right, but specifically like coming back as an animal. But Krishna protects us from this. He promises, and it's wonderful. He says, look, don't trust me. Konteya, you say it. You tell people, my devotee never perishes. It's very nice. But now let's go to this. Let's do a little, I don't want to say Mayavadi bashing, because ultimately even the Mayavadis, we believe, they believe that we're all one and Brahman. But, Mahaprabhu accepted that. He says, the Achintya Bheda Tattva doctrine, where we accept the oneness and difference. So we as Vaishnavas, we stress the difference. We stress the relationship aspect. We stress Krishna's form as being supreme, and Radharani and Radha Krishna, the love that Radharani and Krishna have, their exchange of love, and all the residents of Goloka Vrindavan, and how they are all engaging in assisting Radha and Krishna and their divine pastimes, and Krishna and Balaram, the cowherd boys, and each soul being a unique individual with a swarup, with a form, with a personality, and therefore exchanges of food and talks and games and emotions and so on. We stress that. At the same time, we follow Mahaprabhu, and he does. We don't reject this idea that we're all Brahman, that we're all one, at least in quality. We accept that. Still, having said that, the Vaishnavas do sort of like to fight theologically with the Mayavadis. And so here's this verse that Prabhupada talks about here. You see, again, I'm going to share it with you, and then we're actually going to go to the verse, because unless you know the verse, you won't know what he's referring to here. So you see here, Prabhupada is saying, it is further stated in the 10th canto. So you have a cue, it's in the 10th canto, okay? Although mental speculators perform great austerities, they still fall down because they have no information about the lotus feet of the Lord. So what is this verse? So let's unpack. Let's go to it. I have it right here. Here's the reference. Let me open a new tab. Here we go. You guys see it, right? Yenye ravindaksha vimuktamaninastvayastabhavad avishuddha buddhayaha aruhya krichrena parampadam tataha patanti adho nadrita yushmadangrayaha. Super verse. Like, again, this is like the, and like Shastra means weapon. So this is like the saber. This is the machine gun. This is the greatest weapon in the arsenal of the Vaishnavas to defeat the Mayavadis, or at least to say, look, you guys don't even get moksha. Your moksha is imaginary. Actually, according to Bhagavatam, nobody gets moksha unless you serve Krishna. And so here it says, look, Yenye Ravindaksha is the name of Krishna, right? He who has lotus eyes. And man is the mind. So vimukta maninas means that those who are falsely considering themselves free, falsely considering themselves liberated, and they're speculating, astabhavat, and they're actually contaminated by the buddha, buddhi means intelligent, avishuddha, shuddha means pure, so avishuddha means, impure intelligence. So those who think themselves liberated, and so the Mayavadis, what they want? The Mayavadis want this moksha, isn't it? And they claim that, yes, you become moksha, you become liberated, and, tattvamasi, we become all Brahman, and you are floating around, and, what does Hridayanath Maharaj call it? He calls it a corporate effulgence, a corporate radiance, so you're floating around, and you are, the corporate radiance, and you're liberated. But look what the Bhagavatam says. Aruhya krichrena, even though they reach the highest, even though, you see, aruhya means although, or even though achieving the highest position, param padam, which for them is, this, and they think, though, remember, it's avishuddha buddhaya, or it's mukti only in their mind. They're thinking that they're liberated, but because what? Because they have disregarded the lotus feet of Krishna. Angrayaha, the last word, you see, angrayaha. Because they have disregarded, see, the Mayavadis, they disregard Krishna, isn't it? They don't want to serve Krishna. Or if they serve Krishna, it's only, I just chant Hare Krishna, or I do puja to Krishna, but ultimately I am Krishna, you are Krishna, we are all Krishna, we are all Brahman. Even Krishna is not Krishna. Krishna is just a symbol that represents Brahman. And therefore, again, it doesn't matter if you go to a Shiva temple or a Ganesh temple or a Saraswati temple. I'm sure many of the Hindus in Pakistan, are influenced by this Mayavadi philosophy. I think my camera stopped, isn't it? Let me just change cameras here. I'll go back to FaceTime. You'll see me in my less good quality camera. But anyway, same thing. So many Hindus are under this idea, those who are not Vaishnavas, that it doesn't matter really who you worship, because ultimately, it's Brahman. It's the undifferentiated, nameless, formless spirit behind Krishna, behind Ganesh, behind Saraswati, behind Muruga, or, and that's what really counts. So why are you guys so fixated on Krishna, So the verse here, coming back to it, says they think themselves liberated, but actually they fall down. That's the thing, you see. Look, there are those, aside from the devotees, there are those who are not devotees, and Brahma said, look, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority. So we believe, this is important, we believe that, the Mayavadi who meditates and who dies thinking of Brahman, we think that even if that soul actually gets some sort of mukti, because he has disregarded to actually surrender to Krishna, starting with Krishna's transcendental lotus feet. After some time in the Brahman effulgence, they get bored. That's why, and therefore they fall down. And that's why Prabhupada criticized very much Mayavadi sannyasis who engage in some sort of welfare work, like starting a school or, opening a hospital. And his argument was, you see, they're not liberated because otherwise, if they're getting so much so-called happiness in Brahman, why would they then want to engage in material, pious activity? It's punya, it's nice, opening a hospital, opening a school, but it's still material. I mean, it has to do with the material body, with the material world. But if you're Brahman, if you're liberated, what business you have to, why? Because rasa is missing. Rasa. What is rasa? What is the word rasa? Important. What is the word rasa?
Nectar.
No. Good try, though. We have 5 primary rasas, madhurya rasa, sakya rasa. Exact. So what does rasa mean?
Relation.
Yes, a relation, or the emotion that is experienced in a relationship. And we believe, as Vaishnavas, that we are individual souls, and we thrive, we live on exchanges with other souls, and ultimately with the Supreme Soul, Krishna, or God. And so we are meant to have rasa, to experience rasa with other souls and with God. So, in the spiritual world, one cowherd boy will play with another cowherd boy, in a big game with Krishna. Maybe one cowherd boy will take another cowherd boy on his shoulders. They're experiencing some sort of rasa, of friendship with each other, isn't it? And then one cowherd boy will tell Krishna, close your eyes, here's a gulab jamun. And Krishna closes his eyes and he puts a flower in Krishna's mouth. And all the boys laugh. That is a rasa, right? Or when, Srimati Radharani gets angry with Krishna and tells her friend Lalita, how Krishna broke her heart and Krishna is such a rascal, and Lalita is consoling him, or, and she tells Radharani, no, come on, please forgive him. Krishna came to me and he's begging me to ask you to forgive him. Please forgive him. Come on, give him another chance, right? So that's rasa. That's rasa, the spiritual rasa. And that rasa can only be experienced between persons, between individuals. Like they say in English, it takes 2 to tango. There's a type of dance which is called the tango dance. I don't even know what it looks like, but it's some form of dance, some style of dance. So there's a saying, it takes 2 to tango. In other words, you cannot tango alone. You cannot do tango dance alone. You have to have 2 people dancing. So it takes 2, at least 2, to experience rasa. You cannot have rasa alone, right? So the Vaishnavas really stress on this point of, and what does this rasa give? This rasa gives the param drishtva. And who knows what is param drishtva? Very important term from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. Krishna Priya, the pressure is on you.
Yeah. Higher taste. Experience a higher taste or supreme
The
taste.
higher taste, yes, the higher taste. So this rasa that souls experience, in the liberated state, and also even in the conditioned state. I mean, Krishna reciprocates with us. That's why we like kirtan, because even in kirtan there's some rasa. As a matter of fact, Narottam Das Thakur, who was reading, I don't know if it was Mehak or Poonam, or Roshni or Barka, but in one of the chapters above, Prabhupada again mentions Narottam Das Thakur, and he says a very famous word that actually Indradyumna Swami quotes all the time. I got it from him, really. Narottam Das Thakur says, Golokera Prema Dana Harinam Sankirtan, right? Everyone knows that. So what is the Prema Dan of Goloka Vrindavan? This love, the love of the kingdom of God, of Goloka Vrindavan, and what is that Prema? It's love, but love is experienced only in exchange between at least 2 people. And so that rasa is coming down through Harinam Sankirtan. So when we do Harinam Sankirtan, we experience a little bit of that rasa. So why am I saying this? Because coming back to the Mayavadis, when you are just floating in the Brahman effulgence, and all you can do is just float and be. I mean, how boring is that? How boring is that? Imagine for eternity, you just are. Okay. Okay, I am. All right, what's next? It's like, what's next? I've been floating in Brahman, thinking I am Brahman, but I'm still a person, but I think I'm Brahman for like whatever billions of kalpas. Can I have some action now, please? Can I have some relationship? And that's where Prabhupada says, that's why these Mayavadi sannyasis, they say, okay, let me at least have some rasa, some perverted rasa, some imperfect rasa in the material world. And let me open a hospital, let me open a school. Because there at least I'm having some rasa. And I'm missing rasa for so many billions and zillions of kalpas, right? So we'll close the parenthesis, but this is a very important point. This is how, this is the Vaishnavas, this is the Bhagavatam's conclusion. The Bhagavatam's conclusion about the so-called liberation, the so-called moksha. The Bhagavatam goes as far as saying it doesn't really, it doesn't even happen. It doesn't, that liberation, even after many, many, even in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, Krishna says that, the impersonal path is very difficult, isn't it? Very difficult to obtain impersonal liberation. And even that liberation, the Bhagavatam says it's not really liberation. You think you're liberated, but you neglected Krishna's feet. And because you neglected Krishna's feet, ultimately you're going to miss out on rasa. And since you are built, you're engineered, to exchange love, to receive love, and to give love as an individual soul, you're going to feel unsatisfied. You're going to feel restless. Mayavad philosophy makes one restless. Same result. And therefore, you're going to go for rasa. So, and so what happens? They go for material rasa, Whereas a devotee, ideally, is experiencing a rasa with Krishna, with Radha and Krishna, and therefore, is actually liberated. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay. Someone raised their thumbs. Thank you. So should we just go on? I mean, we have 29 minutes left. We shouldn't take a break, isn't it? Let's just, unless someone really wants to take a break, let's just go on because we don't have much time. So now we have the next chapter, a paragraph, devotional service. Oh, this is my favorite sentence in all of Prabhupada's work. So Kishori, it's your turn to read it. And we'll stop after that one sentence because this one sentence, I remember, I've been reading Nectar of Instruction by Krishna's Mercy for 30 years. And this one sentence, devotional service is so pure and perfect that once having begun, is wonderful. So go ahead.
Devotional service is so pure and perfect that once having begun, one is forcibly led to ultimate success.
Okay, stop. Isn't it wonderful? Like we have free will. But it's almost like the Vaishnavas and Krishnas, they want us to go back to Krishna so much that it's almost like they disregard our free will. And, as soon as we start devotional service, as soon as we, take our first bite of Mahaprasadam, as soon as we, we chant Krishna's name for the first time, as soon as we have darshan, of a Vaishnava or of the deity for the first time, as soon as we do a little bit of service, then Prabhupada says one is forcibly dragged to ultimate success. It's almost like, no, I don't want to go back to Krishna. I don't want to go back to Godhead. And Krishna's like, sorry, buddy, you started, so I'm going to drag you now. I'm going to drag you. But I don't want to. I'm still attached to the material world. I'm still attached to my material sense gratifications. I don't care. You started serving me. Now it's too late. Shut up. I'm dragging you forcibly to ultimate success. Okay, read on, Kishori.
Sometimes a person will give up his ordinary material engagements and out of sentiment take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, and thus within the preliminary association of devotional service. Even if such an immature devotee falls down, there is no loss on his part. On the other hand, what is the gain of one who executes the prescribed duties according to his varna and ashram, but does not take to devotional service? Although a fallen devotee may take his next birth in a low family, his devotional service will nonetheless resume from where it left off. Devotional service is ahetuti apratihata. It is not the effect of any mundane cause, nor can it be terminated by any mundane cause or permanently curtailed by any material interruption. Therefore, a devotee should be confident about his engagement and should not be very interested in the activities of the karmis, jnanis, and yogis.
I heard everything. I had my headphones on. I was just fixing my camera. Isn't it wonderful that look, even if you take your birth in a bad family or in your next life, it doesn't matter. Like you've done devotional service, and because you've done devotional service, Krishna will never forget you for that. And that's why this verse that I don't know who was reading it. Oh, my camera is still not working. Okay, sorry. Let me go back to the FaceTime. That camera, that verse that who was it? Sorry, I think it was Komal. You were reading this Nehabikramana Shosi Pratavyayo Navidyate verse is wonderful. Like if you do a little bit of devotional service, that credit is with you for eternity. You know? Someone raised her hand or his hand? No? Okay. And this is where you see this is where, for example, okay, let me do some comparison with Christianity. In 99% of Christians believe you only have one lifetime. Muslims also, they don't believe in reincarnation. So you have one lifetime. So it's like if in this lifetime you don't get Jesus's mercy or you don't surrender to Muhammad, you're in trouble. You're in trouble when you die, right? But in Bhagavad Gita, you have a picture of a God who's much more tolerant and much more patient. And he's almost like, okay, hey, you want 5 lifetimes? You want more time away from me? Yeah, okay. You want to spend 1,000 more lifetimes away from me? Okay, no problem. But don't, look, you'll suffer because there's a law of karma, and if you break dharma, then dharma will hurt you. But don't worry. Anytime you do anything devotional to me, even unknowingly, like you'll be walking in the streets and some devotees will be doing Harinam Sankirtan and you'll hear the holy name or you'll say haram when you die, etc. I'll note it because I love you so much that I'm going to note it down. I'm going to keep it in my notebook, and this is your notebook of all the devotional stuff you've done for billions of lifetimes. I mean, what a wonderful God. What a wonderful notion of a God who's like, take your time, as much time. I mean, I'm patient. Like whenever you want to turn your face back to me, I'm here. I'm ready for you. And until then, I'll still send you my Bhagavad Gita and the Vaishnavas and Prasadam and so many opportunities to serve. I mean, that's what, I love this, isn't it? Isn't it so much better than this idea, oh, you only have one lifetime, repent, and if you don't accept Jesus now, or if you don't accept God or Allah now, you'll go to hell forever, and after this lifetime, ugh, what a terrible conception of God compared to Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, we have a God who actually respects us so much more than in other traditions. He respects our free will so much that he literally gives us theoretically an unlimited amount of time to turn to him. Like, theoretically, if we want, we could stay, in a condition of rebellion against Krishna forever. And we believe that Krishna will still be there waiting. Like, okay, however long it takes you, I still love you. I still love you unconditionally. How wonderful is that? Okay. Is that a question someone has? I heard the pip. No. I think Varsha's turn then is next to read. Or yeah, Varsha, right? Or you already read Varsha? No, I don't think so.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Jai Jai, Hare Krishna.
There are certainly many good qualities among fruitative actors, philosophically speculators, and mystic yogis, but all good qualities automatically develop in the character of a devotee. No extraneous endeavors is needed, as confirmed by Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12. All the good qualities of the demigods manifest progressively in one who has developed pure devotional service, because a devotee is not interested in any material activity. He does not become materially contaminated. He is immediately situated on the platform of transcendental life. However, one who engages in mundane activities, be he a so-called jnani, yogi, karmi, philanthropist, nationalist, or whatever, cannot attain the higher stage of Mahatma. He remains a Duratma or crypt-minded person. According to Bhagavad Gita 99.13, Mahatmanas tu mam partha devim prakritim
I'll
ashrita.
stop you right here and ask you, and others, Prabhupada already quoted this verse earlier, and he even mentions, this Daivi Prakriti being under the protection of the divine nature. Who is that specifically, we believe, as Vaishnavas? Shobha? Shobha raised her hand, maybe to answer the question.
Can you please repeat your question?
Oh, okay. The question is, we had Varsha reading here this verse, Mahatmanas tumam parta daivim prakritim ashritaha, being under the shelter or ashritaha of Daivi Prakritim. And earlier in verse 2 or 1, Prabhupada actually says who this Daivi Prakritim represents. Who is it? Under the shelter of?
Radharani.
Yes.
Radha.
Very good. So please go on, Varsha, with the translation.
O son of Partha, those who are not deluded, the great soul, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible.
And I'll just read the last, thank you, Varsha. I'll just read the last chapter here, paragraph, and then we'll go to text 4. Since all the devotees of the Lord are under the protection of his supreme potency, they should not deviate from the path of devotional service and take to the path of karmi, jnani, or yogi. You see, like many devotees, even if they bloop, as we say, as they stop being a devotees, nobody becomes a jnani. Like in the history of ISKCON, you don't see many bhaktas who become mayavadis. No way. That never happens. What happens is that mostly devotees who leave ISKCON, they just kind of become mundane materialists and start, gratifying their senses and breaking the 4 regulative principles and just living like a materialist, basically. But none of them become, none of them go from a bhakti conception of reality to a Mayavadi, Advaita Vedanta concept of reality. It's interesting. Okay, let's read the verse again. Who would like? Well, let's see. Varsha, why don't you just also read again these 6 principles, the verse again, so that we go next to the next verse, verse 3, the translation. There are 6 principles. Just at the very beginning of the verse, if you can read to us, just so that we remember.
There are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. Number one, being enthusiastic. Number two, enduring with confidence. Number three, being patient. Number four, acting according to regulator principles such as hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. Number five, abandoning the association of non devotees. And number six, following in the footstep of the previous Acharya. These six principles undoubtedly assured the complete success of pure devotional service.
Very good. So now we're going to talk about prasadam and other things in verse 4. So we have just Aruna, Kumari, and then after her we've got no one to read. So Aruna, you can read the translation and the first paragraph of verse 4, and then we'll just ask devotees to raise their hand again, and we'll get probably, I don't know, only 3 or 4 more because there's only 15 minutes left. So Aruna, the floor is yours for reading, and then Hitika wants to read. Okay, you're first on the list. So Aruna, go ahead. Aruna's here? Oh, maybe Aruna's not here with us anymore, is she?
Probably she has texted, she has called, she can't speak.
Okay. Okay, so then, Hitika raised her hand, and let's see, we got a whole bunch of them, so let's see here.
You want to start? May I start?
Yeah, go ahead. You can start, and then
When a
hold on.
devotee distributes prasada, remnants of food offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to maintain our spirit of devotional service, we must accept this
But
prasada.
I'm sorry, Hitika. Hitika, can you read the translation though? Because we didn't read the translation itself first.
Oh yeah, okay. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidently, accepting prasada, and offering prasada are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. Purpose. In this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami explains how to perform devotional service in the association of other devotees. There are 6 kinds of activities. 1. Giving charity to the devotees. 2. Accepting from devotees whatever they may offer in return. 3. Opening one's mind to the devotees. 4. Inquiring from them about the confidential service of the Lord. 5. Honoring prasada or spiritual food given by the devotees. And 6. Feeding the devotees with prasada. An experienced devotee explains and an inexperienced devotee learns from him. This is Guhyam Akriyati Prichati. When a devotee distributes prasada, remnants of the food offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to maintain our spirit of devotional service, we must accept this prasada as the Lord's grace received through the pure devotees. We should also invite pure devotees to our home, offer them prasada, and be prepared to please them in all respects. This is called Bhunkate Bhojayati Chaiva.
Very good. And I have to say, in my experience of 30 years of, going to India and associating with people from the Hindu community, that's one thing that you guys are blessed with, and hopefully it won't go away so fast. And that is this culture of, inviting guests and offering prasad, and that's something that actually, you should be really proud of, because compared to it's degraded a lot in other parts of the world. At least when I say other parts of the world, I'm talking about America and Europe. I don't want to make generalizations. Of course, there's a culture of inviting guests and so on in the West, and especially in traditional Christian families. And I think also in Islam. I mean, I have a friend who lived in Mayapur. He's French. He walked from France to India passing through, Afghanistan, I think Pakistan, and he said how people in those countries were so welcoming, to their home. But it seems so maybe more in terms of geography, it's more a question of like old world, new world, that when you go back in time, you see this culture, this notion of Atiti Seva, Atiti Devata, like the uninvited guest is considered like God himself came, isn't it? And we should serve prasadam. Like for example, there's that story of Lord Chaitanya when he was a baby in the house of Jagannath Mishra and his mother Sachi Devi, and so there was this itinerant brahmana who came by, and this is mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Neha, you have a question, or do you want to read? I think read, right? You want to read? Okay, so let me just finish the story because it's apropos. So you have this it's mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So Chaitanya Bhagavat, if you don't know, is a book that's less famous in ISKCON because Prabhupada didn't translate it, but he gave the instruction to read it. It's similar to Chaitanya Charitamrita. So if you can get your hands on Chaitanya Bhagavat, you should read it because there's very little philosophy. It's only leelas, and it's mostly leelas of Lord Chaitanya when he's young. Whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela described in Chaitanya Charitamrita is more, when he, like after he takes sannyas, but this is like pre-sannyas Leelas. So there's a story where Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata have this uninvited guest who comes. He's a brahmana who's very austere. He just kind of, and I think he carries some sort of shalagram shila. And so they're so happy that he's here, and they say, please, you cook, you cook, and because they're so humble, even though they're from a Brahmin family. Also, he's like they're like, no, we're fallen. You please cook, but we'll arrange everything for you. So they bring the sabji and the boga and everything, and so he cooks his offering, and it's already kind of late at night. So the parents are somehow rather, the Lord arranges that Sachimata and nobody is there when he's making the offering. You know the story, Gungun? Because you're smiling. Maybe you've heard of the story? Yes? It's a cute story. So he's making this offering, and so in his mind, he's praying, Krishna, please accept this humble offering. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as a baby in Nimai, he crawls to the altar and eats the offering. And so this Brahman is like, oh no, this child ate the offering that was meant to Krishna, and Jagannath Mishra, the father of Nimai, he comes in, he's like, oh my God, please forgive my child, oh my God, and he wants to chastise the child, but the child is too young, So he's like, no. So the Brahman's like, it's okay, don't mind, maybe Krishna doesn't want me to eat tonight, and this is where they're like, no, my God, no, please, please, you have to cook, please. So they put Nimai, in some room, and then please don't cook again. So he's like, okay, fine, I'll cook again. So they bring all the subjects, so he makes another offering. And then again, at the time of offering, somehow the parents are not there, and he prays to Krishna, please accept it. And then Nimai shows up, and starts eating the offering. And again, like, oh God, again, this child is eating the offering, what to do? And so he exclaims. So Jagannath Mishra comes in, and he says, oh my God, my son again, I can't believe it. Yes. So, they this time they put Nimai in a room and they lock it, and they beg, and the Brahmin, it's already like 11 or midnight, and the Brahmin's like, no, listen, I'm not that hungry. And anyway, I live in the forest. I never even cook. I usually just eat some roots and fruits, so no problem. But here's the point. They're like, no, you must. It's like, it's such a great offense if you don't cook and eat. Please, we beg you. So he's like, okay, fine. So again, he cooks, and again, he makes the offering. And again, Nimai shows up, and this is where, like, he reveals to this Brahmana that he's Krishna. And he says, you were calling me, and you're asking me to accept your offering, so I came, And this Brahman is like, oh my, like literally, like, oh my Krishna, like he's, the Yoga Maya. I think it was Krishna Priya who was asking about this Yoga Maya. You see, he was under the spell of Yoga Maya. He doesn't understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. And there, Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Nimai, like takes off this Yoga Maya curtain and reveals to him that he's Krishna. And interestingly, he tells him in this Leela, he says, what I'm showing you now, I forbid you to tell anybody. And if you do, I will destroy you. And so he's like, okay, okay, okay. And then, he takes prasad or whatever. And then it says, Vrindavan Das Thakur says that he never told anyone. But then the question is, how does Vrindavan Das Thakur know, So it must have been revealed to him. But he says that he would come still every day just to take darshan of the baby. I want to see your child, just to, he's a cute child, because he knows, oh my God, it's Krishna himself, so he would come every day afterwards to take darshan. Mm. So anyway, so coming back to Hitika's point, or what we just read in Prabhupada's purport, this culture of accepting prasad and offering prasad is a very important thing that you still see in Hindu culture, even if they're not Vaishnavas. That's why Prabhupada said, talking about India, but I think he wasn't just talking about India. He was talking about Hindu communities in general, around the world, including those who, for some reason, are not in, the actual nation state of India, that they're like dead elephants. Jatin, do you know? Can you understand why Prabhupada called India or Hindu communities dead elephants? No, Shobha's like no. Anyone? Elephants are very expensive animals, extremely expensive, have tremendous value, and even when they're dead, they still have tremendous value because the skin is extremely valuable and the husks are extremely valuable. So Prabhupada made this comment once that India, and again, he was referring to, yeah, okay, he was referring to India, but he was, India without people living there is just some barren land. So obviously he was talking about communities of people. And so he was talking about those who followed the greater Vedic civilization. And again, those who have been following it for many generations, but who may have been, who are in what used to be Bharat, but now is, Pakistan. I mean, remember, this Pakistan thing is a very recent thing, is like a dead elephant. And he was basically saying, like, Vedic culture is dead all over the world. It's gone. It's game over. But you still see vestiges of it. A vestige is like a remnant of it. Like, if you go to Greece, for example, they'll show you the ancient archaeological remnants of the great, amphitheaters of ancient Greek, where they had, like the movie, what is it, Gladiator, or you go to South America and they'll show you these ancient ruins, or even in India. Yeah, I'm sure in Pakistan also, Mahendragarh, that Indus River civilization. So archaeological
Mohenjo-daro.
artifacts. Yes, exactly. So that you can imagine what it was like by seeing sort of the remnants of the the rocks and the ruins, the archaeological ruins. And that's why governments make sure to protect those things, unless they're fanatics and they break them in the name of Allah. But that's another thing. Like they did. Like I think there's some beautiful statues of Buddha in Uzbekistan or something, and the crazy Islamic government, like destroyed all of that. But anyway, so my point is, India, Prabhupada said, like India is like a dead elephant. So in these Hindu communities, you still see, even though it's, Vedic culture is dead and gone, you still see remnants of it, that beautiful culture in those communities. Prabhus, we have 3 minutes left, so let us just stop there. And we'll go into the details of these 6 symptoms of love shared between one devotee and another tomorrow. And we'll just continue. I mean, we'll continue. And right now, for the next 2 minutes, we'll finish. Jai Tulsi, you have a question?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna and pronouns. Prabhuji, may I
Okay,
ask a
quickly.
question? Prabhuji, in last verse, you discussed like we are under the protection of Daivim Prakritim, like Radharani. So, like many of the times, Prabhupada has asked us to be protected from Maya, and like we should have fear from her. And so why, like we are protected, if we are protected from Devim Prakritim, like Radharani, then why to fear from Maya, and why to like consider her more? Like in many cases,
Mm.
Prabhupada has discussed this in his books and lectures.
that we should like fear Maya? We don't have fear of.
Because, or it's a good question. You know, if Radharani is protecting us, why should we fear Maya? In a way, it's not really that we should fear Maya. It's like we should fear our own material desires. And Maya's service is to reciprocate. Maya is not like Maya is just doing her job because we want Maya. You get my point? Like it's because we still have lust and anger and greed and envy in our heart. And so she facilitates us acting out. You know, there's an expression among drug addicts to act out. Like I was sober for 10 years and then I acted out again. So we have, you know, as long as we have an impure heart, we have a tendency to act out on our lust and our greed and so on. And then Maya's like, yeah, go ahead. You know, so it's not that we're, you know, so yeah, it has to do with us. It has to do with us and our free will. So yes, we're under the protection of Radharani, but because you see this brings us to the question of, can a soul reject God always, even when the soul is in the spiritual world? And at least in ISKCON, it's pretty clear that, you know, Prabhupada preached it left, right, and center, and there's verses justifying it. And some people from the Gaudiya Math or some Babajis in Radhakund, you know, say that no, the soul can never, you know, can never fall down from the spiritual world. But my understanding and that of all my Shiksha gurus, and including Prabhupada, is that the individual soul always has free will, even in the kingdom of God, even in Goloka Vrindavan. If you want to stop serving Krishna, you will, and like he's not going to stop you. You see, it's not that free will somehow stops. So the onus, I mean, in other words, the key factor always falls on the individual jiva at every moment. What does the jiva want, you know? So that protection is there. I mean, imagine if you're in the spiritual world, obviously you're protected by Radharani. You're right there in Goloka Vrindavan, right? But I believe, and again, there was even a GBC book, a GBC press book written a long time ago. I can send it to you all also if you want. It's a PDF version called Our Original Position, and it's wonderfully done, very technical because it deals with Sanskrit terms from Jiva Goswami and stuff like that. Establishing that, yes, we believe that the soul can fall from the spiritual world. Why do I mention this? Because, okay, we're in the material world, but if we're protected by Radharani, technically, in a way, we can say we're in the spiritual world, right? But again, we have free will. So, yeah, and even if we are pure devotees, we can still fall. So what to speak of if we're not pure devotees yet? We can act out on our latent lust, or it's not even latent, it's right in our face every day, lust and anger and greed and so on. So, you know, Krishna's protection is there, but he and Radharani, they respect our free will. And therefore, that's why we should always be afraid of Maya. What it means is that we should be afraid of our making a stupid decision to serve Maya, you know, to agree to act out on our material desires. You know, it reminds me, Prabhupada once said, you know, I'm always praying to Krishna to protect me from Maya.
Got it. Thank you so much, Professor.
Pleasure. Okay, let's chant a few Maha Mantras since we are doing the Yuga Dharma. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Rupa Goswami ki jai. Here are deities that are kind of personal for me because they're the first deities I ever saw in my life. They are the deities of Radha Parish Ishwara from Paris. And Prabhupada said he gave them the name. I don't know if you read Lilamrita, you'll know the story behind them. He gave them the name Radha Parish Ishwara, right? Ishvara, the Ishvara of Paris. And he said, when he was installing these deities, he said, Paris is known for the city of beautiful women, where there's many beautiful women in Paris. So Krishna has come to Paris to find the most beautiful Parisian girl, Radharani, and therefore they shall be known as Radha Parish Ishvara. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Radha Parishishwara ki Jai. What are the most famous deities in Pakistan of Radha Krishna called? Is there like one that's considered like the most famous or most established? Do you have deities of Radha Krishna in Pakistan
Prabhuji,
installed?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams. Prabhuji, we don't have like big ISKCON temples, but we have Radha Krishna deities. Like in Karachi, there are Shri Shri Radha Kunj Vihari. And that temple doesn't belong to like ISKCON,
Oh, an
but
institution.
yes, it's Swami Narayan Mandir. There is like Shri
Oh,
Shri
okay.
Radha Kunj Vihari. And there we have Gaur Nitai Bhavan. There are Gaur Nitai deities, extremely beautiful deities, extremely beautiful.
Jai.
Please share you.
We say they're like they are dancing lords.
The dancing lords.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Jai. Okay, Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, we'll take leave. Have a good
Thank you
evening,
so
and
much, Prabhuji.
we'll meet next Monday, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Express
Krishna.
Chandrasekhar Prabhu ki Jai. Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.